Anyway, I'm Anita Gaynor. I live on Finley Drive, and I appreciate all of y'all coming out, the ones from Finley and Jojo, and I appreciate y'all coming out and listening to our concerns and telling us where you stand on them, and I appreciate you coming to be the narrator, and thank y'all. So with that, we are going to...
Yeah, I think Pastor Trail's going to...
Oh, he's going to... Yes, we're going to first get a prayer.
Is that okay?
Yes. We need it.
Hey, welcome. Glad you're here. If you need restroom or whatever, you can go here and down to the gym. That way, don't go that way. You'll run into the Russian congregation down there. So they're having a fellowship tonight. So back this way is the better way. And again, I welcome you. I'm going to pray. And I have to slip out because I have a deacon's meeting going on at 6 o'clock. But my wife's here and she'll tell me how to vote. So we'll be ready to go. Amen. Thank you, Father, for your goodness to us. We thank you for liberty, freedom. Thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to be free men and women and cast our ballots. Thank you for these two with courage to run. And I pray, Lord, that you would see over this election, give us peace across not only our region, but the U.S. Here in a couple of weeks. And we commit this night now unto you, and we thank you that you love us. Thank you for the Lord Jesus giving his life for us. And it's his name I pray tonight. Amen. And amen. Thank you very much.
And I forgot to say thank you to Olive Baptist for letting us do this here. So there you go. Thank you.
I'll do it too.
And good evening, everybody. I actually work at the county as well, but I'm also part of the neighborhood, so that's why I'm here tonight. But I would like to introduce former county commissioner and former mayor of the city of Pensacola. I've had the pleasure of having this gentleman, my boss, in 2 different locations, and I know he'll do a fantastic job tonight. Welcome, Grover.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you. Thank you. I was going to say, just real quick, that from Pastor Traylor being here, I was going to say, I didn't start, when I was District 4 Commissioner in 2006, Olive Baptist was just outside of District 4, but I managed in 12 years to get Olive Baptist into District 4, so I was happy to do that. Also to simply say that if Stephen Hall calls me and says, I need you to do something, I'm going to show up. So certainly appreciate having Stephen both at the county and at the city. I hate to lose him back to the county, but I told him it was a really good thing, and he's doing good stuff for us at the county, and I appreciate him. As a citizen of the county, I very much appreciate him and the work he does. The only other thing I want to, before we get started, is just to thank both Ashlee and Ron for their willingness to run. I think the challenge, I tell people all the time, the world would be a better place if everybody had to run for public office. They would get a chance to see what that's like. And we need good people to do it. So certainly my respect and appreciation go out to both of them for being here and willing to do that. And also to the Neighborhood Association to have these opportunities. I've had many a time to sit in that chair right there and do that, but it's always good to have good neighborhoods. Good neighborhoods help make District 4 a better place. So thank you for what you're doing in your neighborhood. That's more important for both of these individuals. Your neighborhood and your involvement will be critical. So we will, I guess, start with the candidates themselves. We'll each have 3 minutes. Our timer is up here, and she will have our timer and start us, and then we'll let each of them have 3 minutes, and then we'll go into the questions. You want to start with Ashlee?
Thank you so much. I am Ashlee Hofberger, and I am currently the acting county commissioner for District 4. I received the appointment from Governor DeSantis the Friday before last, and that was very, very exciting. So last time I was in here, I told you why I was running, and today I want to tell you in a short period of time what I have done to already make an impact on those items. So number one was more resources for our first responders, and most of you probably remember the story of our little girl, and EMS could not give us a arrival time on the ambulance, so I was dedicated to providing more resources for our first responders. Today's meeting, we approved the ordering of 22 new ambulances for Escambia County, and that is huge. We have started hiring incentives for our EMTs, and that will be given out to them over a 2-year period of time, which will also help us with retention for those people. And we are working on a EMT training program, partnering with one of the local high schools to provide a job track for those folks. That way, as soon as they graduate and they turn 18, they can take the test to become a EMT, and we can partner with them alongside so they can have a job right out of high school and they can start working in our community. And that is vitally important for a few reasons. One of the bigger reasons that you have young people in crime is they are continuously trying to provide for their family. So let's give them a way to do that. Let's give them a career path, and let's give them something where they can really, really help our community, and that will make an impact across the board. So I'm excited to work on that. I also told you I wanted to make it easier to do business in Escambia County, that there are too many roadblocks for small businesses. So I have evaluated the opened positions in the permitting department. There are 6 of them. I met with Tim Tolbert, who is the head of the building department, and said, what do we need to do to get these positions filled? So we had a great brainstorming session over that. And we're also looking into AI options, which will help expedite and make sure that any of the plans that go through permitting are held to a specific standard. And what I like about the AI part is it takes the emotion out of it. So it's no longer my buddy or my friend or someone else got preferential treatment. It's all done through a computer and then checked by a human. So very excited about their willingness to work on that. And I've also requested the average time that someone spends in permitting, and we're going to look at reducing that by 20% over the next year. I promised you better spending and more transparency within your local government. I am working on projects that we can receive matches for. So maybe there's matches from the federal government or grant programs out there. We are working with grant writers in the community for grants that, such as safe streets and sidewalks, Pensacola Beach, and different places that are also high traffic areas where we can get matches for grants to put in streetlights and sidewalks. So all of that money is not coming from you as taxpayers. And it's only been 2 weeks, so I feel like that's pretty good. So thank you.
Thank you. Ron?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ron Helms, and it was good to be here with you before and to join you again for a second night. I want to thank Olive Baptist and Pastor Traylor. I know his wife will get that message to him, and it is a privilege to be here. Let me start out by just telling you a little bit about myself. I'm a fiscal conservative. And some people ask me along the way, Ron, what does that mean? And it means that I'm going to go through the county budget line by line by line by line. I have already met with Stefan about the budget, and he's helped enable a very good process. And so I look forward to seeing where we can make improvements, where we have unnecessary spending, change where we are planning to spend that funds to areas in which we really need funding. I'm also strong on ethics. And from every decision, the one thing that I think about before I give my response is what I am about to do or we are about to do ethically okay with me. And I think that's something that the Board of County Commissioners has missed a bit. But I'll talk more about that later. I am a business owner locally. I own Oodles Antiques on West Navy. I've owned multiple businesses in the 20 years that I've lived here in Pensacola. I previously pastored in the states of Virginia, Pennsylvania, and upstate New York. After 202 cumulative inches of snow, I decided it was time to move to Pensacola, where I now reside. And I'm also a military veteran. I've served in combat. I've been meritoriously honored for the combat in which I was involved. Some of you are old enough to remember the Grenada invasion, and also I gave a lot of service in Beirut right before the Marine barracks blew up. But I had duty stations all over the world. And it was truly an honor and a privilege to serve my country at 2 different points in my life. I'm here tonight to answer questions, but also to remind you, and I'll tell you more as we go along, that my platform is crime and gun violence, affordable housing, and how we can work to help bring some lowering of property insurance, homeowners insurance rates down, how we might be able to work with our state delegation to do that. There's a lot of work to get done, but I believe in public service, and I believe in serving the people with strong community engagement. And as the next commissioner of this district, that's what I hope to do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. We have 13 questions that have been brought forward that we're going to ask. The format that we're going to do it is we're going to start with one of you. We'll take the first question, and then it'll go one candidate will answer, the other candidate will answer for 2 minutes, and then the candidate who went first will have a 1-minute rebuttal. Then we'll flip the question and go the other way. So that whoever goes first have the opportunity in a 1-minute rebuttal. We will go through these. I will say I don't believe the first one needs a rebuttal because I don't think you can rebut why somebody else wants to run for office. I think most of you may have taken this, but at least we'll give you 2 minutes to, if there's anything else that you want to say why you want to hold the office of County Commissioners for District 4. To do that, we won't necessarily do a rebuttal on this one, but we'll give each of you 2 minutes to say what it is, why, if you haven't said it in the first 3, why you want to hold the office in District 4. And I guess we'll go with Ron. We'll start with you first on this one, Ron, and then we'll go to Ashlee.
Thank
Just
you,
alternate
Reverend.
questions.
All right. I believe that the residents of District 4 deserve a new county commissioner who is available, willing, and able to answer their calls, answer their emails, and who cares about them. A commissioner who brings a fresh perspective to county government. You know, if you turn on Channel 4 and you watch the county commission meetings, I hope that you maybe had the opportunity to set a timer to see how long it is until you fell asleep watching those very boring meetings, and sometimes they are. But what I want to remind you of is that there should be much information that has come your way long before a board meeting and a decision-making process. There should be lots of community engagement. You should know what's coming up on the county agenda just because of how you've interacted with your commissioner on an as-needed basis or as you choose basis. I believe that the residents of District 4 want a fresh perspective to county government, new leadership who is accessible and available, who returns phone calls and emails, leadership that will bring beneficial change, not just ordinary change, leadership that supports the priority of District 4 and the Board of County Commissioners, leadership who works toward less shade meetings, less lawsuit, less litigation to the Board of County Commissioners. So all that in one deep breath, just to remind you, our county commission spends more time in shade meetings than I think they ever have in recent history, and I hope that will soon come to a close.
Thank you. And now, Ashlee, you have 2 minutes. I know I'm going to try to give you enough time to set it up. Yeah, this seems to be the hard part I've noticed already in this moderation. I've noticed that it's getting the timer set back. Also, when Mr. Helms speak, if you could make sure that I could see at least the time, because I couldn't.
Absolutely. Happy to do that.
I was not over my time.
You were not over. I just couldn't see the time. That's all. I was simply. It's hard for me to moderate.
Awesome.
Hold on.
I'm going to share 2 personal stories that brought me to run for office because I don't think you should be in politics if you're not passionate. And the first one is our little girl. I came home and Grant says, "Is that you?" I said, "Who else would it be?" It's 6:30. And he said, "I just called the ambulance." And I walk in and Layla is laid out on our bed, completely incoherent. She has no idea what's going on. Thankfully, she is still breathing. The fire department comes in right behind me and they take her vitals. She's stable and they put her on oxygen as a precautionary measure. And at that point, I asked dispatch, "How far out is the ambulance?" And they went silent. So I began to panic and I said, "We are less than 10 minutes from Sacred Heart. She is stable. How far out is the ambulance?" And the best answer I could get is, "Well, they're on their way." 23 minutes later, they finally arrived. And that is a lifetime when you don't know what is going on with your child. So I am committed to making sure that when you call 911, someone is available to respond to you. The second reason I'm running is I come from small business ownership. The last project that we did, it took us over 13 weeks to get a permit for an interior remodel. I took a step back and I knew how much it had costed us, and I knew how much of the bills we had to float and how our doors were not open. and it was really frustrating. But I thought on a larger scale, how many jobs are we missing the opportunity to have in our community because it is too difficult to do business in Escambia County? So the second reason I'm running is simple. I want to create an environment where small businesses can thrive, where you can open up the cafe, you can open up your construction company, you can open up that restaurant you've always dreamed of, and the government will not get in the way of that, and we will make that a clear and easy path for you to do business. I'm committed to those two things. And someone asked me, well, what about funding for this? And I said, I have on blinders. First responders and making sure that we have the infrastructure we need, and at the same time, making sure we can do business efficiently in the county.
All right. Thank you very much. And this time, Ashlee, we'll start with you. The question is, what are your short-term and long-term priorities, especially considering that this election fills only 2 years remaining in former Commissioner Bender's term ending in 2026? How do you plan to achieve those priorities? And we will start when we get a timer back set. Okay.
So short term, I want to reduce the EMS response time 20% each year over the next 2 years. If you look at national average, that is very doable, but is going to take a lot of work and a lot of collaboration. I want to reduce the amount of time that plans spend in permitting and zoning, also by 20% every year over the next 2 years. Again, we can make that happen. It's just going to take a lot of work. Long term, I want to revamp the land development code. Our community has changed. We're growing. We've got to plan for that. And at the same time, we have got to make sure that the infrastructure is in place for the growth that we are currently experiencing. And when I say infrastructure, I mean getting to school on time, getting to work on time, and not being a 20-minute car ride when it should be a 5. But I also mean stormwater issues. I know flooding is a huge issue, not just in your area, but throughout the community as a whole. And a lot of that's because we're growing. We need to plan for that as a county. That is not an overnight fix. It's not something you can just go in and throw people at, or something that you can just go in and change a process. It's something that's going to take time to budget for. It's going to take time to write the grants for and find the funding for. So as a long-term goal, committed to providing more infrastructure and easy transportation throughout our community.
Okay. All right, and the same questions. Ron, if you need to, if either you need to repeat, I'll be happy to do it, but just let me know. But otherwise, Ron, same question to you. Question 2, and are we ready to go? Yes.
Well, first, let me say that I consider Commissioner Bender a friend. He has often given me encouragement along the way, and I think that he has done a wonderful job in the time that he was Commissioner for District 4. But he would also tell you at the same time that sometimes your projects as a county commissioner can take years to get to completion. And so one of my first hopes is to make sure that the projects that he had in place and has in place come to a place of fruition and completion. So short term, I'll be very specific. I'll set up my office, meet with Mayor Reeves, meet with the county administrator, hire a commissioner's aide. And for those of you that don't know, we've just recently lost Angela Crowley to the Board of Elections. But make appointment to the Santa Rosa and Island Authority Board, formal follow-up on affordable housing. These are my platforms: crime and gun violence, and work toward a free gun lot program, work collaboratively with the county administrator to address any constituent services issues, and make regular availability to meet with neighborhood associations and constituents. I don't want to take the role of the county administrator by moving it myself into departments and making changes right away. I want to be of encouragement to the county administrator who's responsible for making changes. And it is correct that sometimes it takes the will and the insistence sometimes of a county commissioner to get things done. But I want to come in with a fresh page looking for a fresh start. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you want a rebuttal, let me know. If not, we can move to the next question. Ashlee, did you want to? Okay, all right. We'll move to the next question. Ron, we will go with you this time. The question number 3 is, how will your current non-commissioner job fit with your job as county commissioner?
Well, I have to be very honest, and hopefully I'm trying to be funny. I wrote down my answer. I just put just fine. Look, I think that we have a very interesting dynamic going on at the county commission. And for some good reasons, maybe, and for some not so good reasons. When you're a part-time county commissioner, you produce part-time work. Hopefully through your aide and other people, a team around you, you're able to get a lot more done than what you really deserve to get credit for through them. But I own a business. I have multiple staff. I have to work on times that I don't want to work, and I get to stay home on days I didn't expect to. But if you elect me to be the District 4 County Commissioner, I'm going to work for you full time. You're not going to have to wonder whether or not I'm around or available. You'll be able to call the office, and if I'm sitting in the office, you'll be able to talk to me on the phone or have me come out and meet you somewhere to talk about whatever matter that's on your heart. I think the job of a commissioner truly is to be available for the people. I am very people-based. I think that there's an absolute necessity for town hall meetings with structure, and we're not always going to agree on everything, but we all should at least be on the same page of knowing what issues matter to you so that I can then decide what issues matter to me. And for me, there's very little difference in between. So what matters to you matters to me. I'll be a full-time county commissioner. I have the staffing in my business to support that, and I look forward to serving you in that capacity.
All right. Actually, when we get the timer started.
So working as county commissioner is my full-time job right now. So I feel like it's fitting in really well. It's very exciting. Most of you know that I do own several businesses. I don't work in those businesses every day. It is different between working on a business and working in a business. My husband and my business partner have both stepped up since I filed to run for county commissioner, and they have taken over the daily operations of those businesses. Thank you. You're doing a great job, which I really appreciate. But we also have an amazing team of employees, and we empower them to make decisions and be accountable and to really have a career with us. So with that, there's a lot of growth there. And since I filed to run, we have been able to hire 2 new managers and promote someone. So it's exciting to be able to provide those jobs to members of our community. In addition, I do believe that it is a full-time job working at the office. You're not going to be in the office very often because you should be out in the community and you should be meeting with people and laying eyes on situations and having meetings with HOAs and neighborhood watch groups. And when they say, hey, there's a homeless camp down the street, you drive by that and you know what that looks like. And so you're out in the community every single day, and it is imperative that you have a good support team with your aide. I have hired Melanie Luna. A lot of you may know her from her involvement in the community. She's extremely involved in several nonprofits, and she is bringing a level of excitement and engagement to the office that I am so excited to see. So I'm thankful for that. And I am committed to communicating on a consistent basis. I have started a 2-minute weekly update because a lot of people have a short attention span. So every Friday I give you an update on what was completed that week and what will be completed in the next week. Along with that, I have also hosted several community meetings. Community conversations is what we've been calling them. So I've made myself available one-on-one and in group settings. And I plan to continue to do that at different times throughout the days because single parents and working families have different schedules, and it's not always convenient at 5:30 or 8 a.m.
All right. And I'm glad y'all have this in front of you because I was going to say these questions are going to start getting longer. So I'm glad you've got them there to read. So question 4, do you support either updating or developing an all-new land development code and comprehensive plan? Should a study and comparison of the codes of other Florida counties similar to Escambia in size and character be conducted at this time? When should a revision begin? And can we do this internally, or do we have to hire a professional? And how and when do you plan to get started? Ashlee, we'll start with you. That's a lot of questions.
It is. I absolutely do support it. I don't believe we need a study done, and the reason why is I believe we hire an outside firm for two reasons. One, there are too many internal pressures on someone to revamp that code for special interest groups, and they will continue to call, and it's not even that they're being paid off, it's that their heart goes out to these people and they think, well, maybe if it's not just right for the community, but it's right for these people, maybe I can just work it in. And that's not what we need. We need a completely neutral approach. The other benefit to hiring a company to do that is we don't have to pay for those studies and those evaluations of similar counties. They'll already have that information because they do this every single day, day in and day out, and it's what they excel in. So I think that's one of the long-term goals that I would be committed to, because it's not something that's going to happen overnight, but it is something that you can get the ball rolling and put out a request for proposals for people to bring their ideas to the table and what type of companies we would hire for that.
All right. We will. Okay, Ron?
This question is a big lift for the county to answer. You could probably go down to the county and ask to see all the studies that are sitting on a shelf somewhere and count them up. And a lot of them are very thick, multiple volume. But if we choose to do this, and I believe we need to do it with true intention. We are seemingly passing changes anyway at most county commission meetings. We already go back and forth about what's acceptable versus now what the Land Development Code said or said in the past versus what was passed in previous county commission meetings. At nearly every meeting, it is residents versus commissioners. It's about on whether or not it fits the master plan. So the bottom line is, absolutely. Do I think that we need to use an outside professional? 100%. I agree with Ashlee that we don't need to pay to find comparative studies. They're already done. But that doesn't mean, as we compare ourselves to those other counties, and let's be clear, doesn't mean we want to be like them. Doesn't mean what fits for them fits for us. I think the citizens of this county should decide on what's right for each district or for the county as a whole. And I think the board will come together and decide how to facilitate that. We're not a fix-all, as we all are one. I think it can be individually done. But definitely by professional, definitely what we're doing has had many, many changes and needs to be put into formal context. So I support it.
All right. Ron, we're coming back to you with this question, another long one. The commissioner of each of the 5 county districts is voted on by only the voters of that district to be their representative. But each commissioner works for their district and for the other 4 districts as well. Are you in favor of all voters voting for all district commissioner candidates? Do you commit to working not only for District 4, but also working as a team player with the other commissioners to do what is best for the entire county? And finally, what are your personal characteristics that will enable you to do that?
I love this question. It just makes me smile because it's one I think I can answer. I'm not in support of voters voting countywide on all commissioners. I highly appreciate the current structure that we have. I think it works for us. And if it works for us, why mess with it? I think what works for us best is when we have the best possible commissioner in the seat at the dais representing us, and that comes through the voting process. So I highly appreciate our structure, and I do believe that personally for me, if I step on the dais as the next commissioner of District 4, I don't care whether somebody's a Republican or a Democrat, no party affiliation, or doesn't want much to do with politics, but just wants to have a life that is peaceful, enjoyable, and they're not pressed upon because of rules and regulations that are unnecessary. So I think that I would sit and be very supportive of whatever decisions are made across the county. I think each commissioner represents their piece of the pie from their constituents. Am I open to hearing publicly from other constituents? Sure, but I think that's a dangerous area to enter into. But if we're having lots of town hall meetings, even though the commissioners can't speak to one another, we can certainly hear constituents, and I would agree to being there and to do that. I'm a collaborator, and being a collaborator does not mean agreeing the same on every issue. It does not mean voting the same even. But I'm fully supportive of being a collaborator. Being a collaborator is not a rubber stamper, but we'd work together, get the county's business completed, and I believe I have the character and the characteristics in my leadership to do that without any fail.
All right. And Ashlee, the same question.
I have the opposite answer. I believe that everyone in the community should be able to vote for the county commissioners. I believe you should have to live in the district that you're running for, but the community as a whole should have a voice on that. If you look at the decisions that we've made or not made over the last 4 years with the county commissioner, a lot of those are held up because, let's face it, those county commissioners need those votes to get reelected. It's not that they have the best interests of the community at mind. And that's hard. Who can blame them, right? Because they're just trying to keep their jobs. If they were accountable to the entire community, all of Escambia County, they would be more, forced to do what was right for everyone and not just for their district. And I think it is important that we have representation across the board. We are one of only 4 counties in the state of Florida that have the seats set up the way that we have them set up. So I do feel like it is a antiquated system that we should look at revamping. In that same vein, I am for term limits. I think 2 terms in office is more than enough. In the private sector, if you can't get done what you need to get done in 8 years, I would fire you. So I don't think it should be any different in the public sector. And I believe in community over everything else. And this is the most millennial thing you'll hear me say, but the county commissioners act like it's Hunger Games. My district, my district, my district, what's in it for me? And they say it on the dais, like you hear it all the time. And we've got to get away from that. It's got to be community over everything else. And the best example I can think of is when I interviewed with the firefighters, and they said, most of District 4 is in the city. What are you going to bring to the table? And my answer was, I'm their third vote. They need me to vote for more resources for our first responders. I'm committed to doing that because I see the impact it has on the whole community, not just District 4.
I'd like to rebut.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I believe that we have some changes in leadership coming to the county commission. Some election results have already happened, and it happened for a reason, because the citizens of those districts rose up, had discussion and debate, and went to vote as the will of the people. I don't think that means that every county commissioner has an agenda. I think sometimes that county commissioner knows what's best for that district in an intentional way. Sometimes we make decisions to prevent problems as well as to resolve problems. So I think we have to be very careful in how we say that. And as a collaborator, if one commissioner knows his district very well, and trusts that I know my district very well, I'm going to entrust my judgment toward what they favor in my vote, whether or not to approve. I think we have to be careful, though, because we have the double-sided coin.
Thank you. All right. Now we have, going to Ashlee, a concern is mobility fees or impact fees, which pay for improvements that a large development necessitates, such as roads, water, sewer, schools, parks, etc. Explain your position on impact fees, who should pay, the developer, the home buyer, or the entire taxpayer base.
It's never the developer. The developer has a margin that they have to make, and so they are going to mark up the house whatever it costs to make that margin. So it is going to be the homeowners that are going to pay that. It is going to be your kids who are trying to buy a starter home that just want to live here and raise your grandkids. It's going to be my mom that can't move back to Pensacola because housing is already too expensive. those are going to be the people that end up paying the impact fees. I've said from the beginning, our government has two essential responsibilities. The first one is to keep us safe, so our first responders, and the second one is to fund infrastructure. We know that we are in a growth phase. It is extremely apparent. We need to be planning for that. We have got to plan for better roads and more schools, and we should be allocating money according to that. I know and the reason it doesn't happen, it's not fun and it's not exciting, and nobody, celebrates you when you give the sheriff's department a raise or when you give the firefighters a raise. They celebrate boat ramps and they celebrate libraries, and those things are great, and they celebrate parks. I love parks. I have a 3-year-old. But the truth is, we've got to fund our infrastructure and the building of our schools and our roads and our stormwater before we support anything else. And that's where the funding needs to come from. It can't come from upping the price on houses. Our houses are already too expensive. We have people living in apartments left and right because they cannot afford home ownership. And that's just sad. And I don't want to add to that.
Okay, Ron?
Just waiting for the timer. Thank you. Well, I'm glad we finally found some places of disagreement here at the table. I believe in impact fees on large developments. I think that it's necessary that the developer have a role and a responsibility to pay for some of the infrastructure. It makes no sense to me to think that that would not work. Yes, they're going to pass some of those costs onto the home buyer, as any home builder does, but not all of the cost. Smaller developments, maybe we can figure out a different solution. But for large developments, I think we definitely need impact fees. Note to yourself and to everybody else, ECUA just raised your rates. So, somebody's going to pay for all of these things, and it's going to be us. Water and sewer, it just went up. Sewer upgrades from septic to sewer is expensive for many homeowners. This is why the county and others seek grants to help residents pay for some of these things, as well as the county helping them along the way. It takes a good relationship from the city to the county, from the county to the city, to talk about and plan for spending allocated money from grants. We have seen the disappearance of down payment assistance by home buyers because all the funds are gone that the county spent. The city had no clue. So I think we have a responsibility there as well. That's it for now.
Can I have a rebuttal?
Yes.
How many of you work in a service industry, restaurant, HVAC, construction, handyman, hairstylist? You have a daughter or son that does something? Okay, those product prices go up. Your haircut is going to cost more. The cost of potatoes go up. Your French fries are going to cost more. They are going to pass that cost to the homeowners. I can tell you this because I came from the construction industry and I know how it works. Labor goes up, you pass that cost along. You have got to do it. Otherwise, you're expecting them to take food off of their table and not be able to put their kids through college because of impact fees. And that's not going to fly. It sounds good, it's just not reality.
May I rebut?
I think we said we were just doing the rebuttal, that we give everybody the time and the
Thank
rebuttal. All right. We have the next question is another concern is how we manage concurrency to ensure that all public facilities and services are in place to support the new development at the time of the development impact occurs. What is your stand on concurrency? And we'll start with Ron.
I've said in the past, and some of you have heard it from me, and I've said it at a public Board of County Commissioners meeting, that I'm open to supporting concurrency. There are pros and cons. The board needs to have a fully informed discussion about concurrency. I know that Commissioner Burgosh is in support of concurrency. It doesn't mean that's why it was voted out. Myself, I believe that we need to have that conversation. We also need a lot of public discussion about whether or not we have concurrency.
Okay. All right. once we get the time back up and running. All right, Ashley.
There are a few different aspects to concurrency. When I look at it, I look at, are we planning things concurrently? And ECUA in Escambia County is a great example of that. You'll see ECUA go in, they'll lay new pipes, well, they'll dig up your roads, they'll lay new pipes, they'll put your roads back down, and a year later, the county comes in and they're like, oh, here's your new sidewalks and your great, street lights, which is awesome. But we could have done all of that at one time and cut the cost in half. And when I asked why, it was a very simple answer. There's no shared calendar between ECUA and Escambia County. That's an easy fix. I am already working with the board at ECUA to make that happen. So that will help your tax dollars go further. I think this is an important place to highlight. The half-penny sales tax is also going to be on the ballot. It is imperative that the county pass that so we can continue funding for our schools, so we can have nice schools for our community and continue to provide the great education that we want for our children. The other side of that is we need a plan for growth. And I know I keep saying that, but we're in a growth phase. Since COVID, everyone realized they can move to Pensacola and work remote and make the same thing they used to make in New York City. And who wouldn't want to live here? Everyone wants to live here. So we've got to plan for that growth phase. It means we need to be planning for increased traffic. We need to plan for that infrastructure. When we look at these big developments that go in, and you read about them in P&J, yes, it's a 300-house neighborhood, but they all don't go in overnight. It'll take 5 to 10 years to build out that neighborhood and to get all of those houses online. So it should not be a surprise once number 300 hits the market. You've had plenty of time to plan for that. We just need to invest your tax dollars accordingly.
All right. Actually, then this is going to be a long one. The Finley Jojo neighborhoods are older single-family neighborhoods with larger lots. Finley Drive lots average an acre and a half, and they range in size from a half acre to 6 acres. Several neighbors have lived in Finley over 50 years. Somewhere along the way, the neighborhoods were rezoned to HDMU without the knowledge or input of the residents. These neighborhoods have battled multiple incompatible proposed developments. These neighborhoods have received rulings from the county against all recent plans submitted due to these proposed developments being incompatible in density, intensity, and character and size. To the District 4 candidates, what is your position regarding the Finley Jojo neighborhoods, as proposals for incompatible development are again expected to be submitted after this election? We support the property rights of the existing homeowners or the property rights of the developers. Ashley, start with you.
That is a great question. So I asked the zoning department when that rezoning happened, and they told me it had always been zoned that way from day one.
No.
Okay. I have that in email if we need to see that. So that is something we need to address with them. The other side of that is I believe there's a world in which these two things coexist. And Pam Childers asked me, how are you going to make your decisions when you're on the board? And at the time, I didn't understand what she meant. But looking back, she meant, how are you going to make sure that you're making the right decisions and what benefits the community? So I came up with 3 ways that I can promise you I will vote according to. So write this down, mark it on the video, because here it goes. Is it legal? Does it match our current laws, ordinances, and statutes? Number 2, does it provide a needed amenity for our community? And number 3, will it raise property values? So that is how I'm going to judge however I vote on something. As far as the development that's proposed to go into your neighborhood, the person that owns that property, none of the proposals have came straight from him. They've all came from a third party. I spoke with him last week, and he wants something that is acceptable by the entire neighborhood, and he doesn't want to have to fight that. So he does want to put something in that will be an amenity and that will be an asset to the community. I told him that I was not in favor of apartment complexes. I'm in favor of home ownership, and that is really, really important to me, and that I believed it was important to your community as well. You don't want apartments there. You want houses with families and school teachers and bankers, and that's what you want in your community. And he smiled. He said, I get that. That makes sense. So I am hopeful that that is the case.
Okay.
Just let me say to the previous question that was asked to me, I have flipped many houses in Escambia County, And I understand that when a house is flipped, there are expensive costs. There are things you find that you never knew were wrong. You absorb some of that cost yourself by adjusting your bottom line. You don't pass all that on to the person who's buying that house. That's the way I see it. And to this question, let me be clear and let the videos seek to understand. I will fully support the property rights of the existing homeowners of Jojo Road and Finley Drive. I already have been, and I will continue to be without exception. I do not know the history of how we got to a place in our planning board and elsewhere where quality of life is not number one on the list. They read it into the record just recently, and then they told the public that they weren't going to consider it in their vote. I stand 100% with the residents of Finley Drive and Jojo Road. These developments previously submitted were not acceptable. Trust me, the developer knew every time something was submitted, it was on his terms. I'm not in support of it. I am willing to meet with the developer and hope to do that soon to see if we can come together and resolve it in conjunction with meeting with the residents. I think that's the only path forward.
All right. Ron, what will you do to improve public safety, including crime prevention, law enforcement, firefighters, emergency services, etc.? How will you fund it?
I lost my page here, Grover. 1 second. Gotcha. Crime prevention comes first. We need a lot more cameras and a lot more enforcement. Our police department, like our code enforcement, functions from a model of being proactive sometimes. Most often, they're not the ones to generate any action, but we need for them to be proactive versus reactive. Crime and gun violence, I support funding the sheriff's department so that we have a fully functional task force at the state, federal, local, county, city level to address the rising crime gang activity that we have in our city. Public housing. You know, there's individuals who own much of public housing, but they're not out there on a regular basis. They don't even live in this town, but they get their check every month and they do little to maintain an acceptable quality of life in public housing. This is a tough issue. Even to this day, do you know if your house is on fire, if you live in public housing, if your house is on fire and you call 911, the fire department will get to the front gate, but they're not coming in without law enforcement. If your child is sick or injured and you call 911 and you want an ambulance to come and help you, if you live in public housing, the ambulance is not going to come in until they have an escort from law enforcement. That tells us we have a lot bigger problems to resolve. We have people that hang out.
Ron, we've hit. You wrap that up?
Yes, we have people that hang out in public housing that don't even live there and should not be there. They're trespassing.
All right. Ashley?
I believe in small government, and with that, I believe our government has two essential responsibilities. The first one is to keep us safe. When you pick up the phone to call 911, the person who responds should have the knowledge and tools to address the emergency that you're in. The second one is more infrastructure, building our roads, making it easy to get to school and to work. I believe the way to fund these is to fund them first. Be more transparent with the way that we're spending our tax dollars. Celebrate the wins when we put in a new drainage pond that keeps 5 houses from flooding. Celebrate the wins when we give a raise to the firefighters, who, by the way, are making less than the people that fold your laundry at the washroom. That is a true statement. We've got to fix those things. So I believe in making sure that we have the funding to do that first before we fund anything else, whether it's exciting or fun or not. And as a community, I'm asking for your help to celebrate those wins. Share it on Facebook when we do that. Give a kudos so that people know where their tax money is going, because we're going to have to say no to projects. There are going to be things that don't get funded. Maybe it's a boat ramp, maybe it's a library. I don't know what that is, but we can't continue to fund everything and provide more funding to our first responders. So I want to make sure that that happens first. The other side of that is I believe that we should look at our population growth and select milestones. As our community grows, we automatically add resources and personnel to our fire departments, our law enforcement, and our EMS. We don't do that now. Coming from the world of business, you plan for that. You don't make someone come back and negotiate every time. When you hit one of those milestones, it's automatic. That would provide better service for our community, and it would make sure that we have the right number of officers for a community our size, which we do not.
All right. Actually, next question is, what do you plan to do to address the problem of homelessness in Pensacola, people in Escambia County?
I believe this is a short-term goal and a long-term goal situation. Come January 1st, these people have to have somewhere to go. So I've already worked with the county administrator to have a special zoning ordinance allowed for waterfront rescue mission so that the mayor can provide pallet houses for some of the homeless communities. There is a database where it shows how many beds are available and what nonprofit those are available at. That was at the request of the sheriff's department, so when they pick someone up, they know where to take them. And I said, why aren't we using that? And I was told, well, the nonprofits don't always update that. So I asked for a list of those nonprofits. My aide is calling them, hey, we really need you to do this. This is the impact it's having on the community. We need your help. So she is working on that. As far as a long-term goal, we need a low barrier shelter. We need a place that people can come and they can get help. It should not be legal to be homeless in Escambia County. And I know on the surface that sounds heartless, but the truth is you're homeless because something terrible happened to you and you need the community to come alongside you and rally and make it so you can be a productive, accountable member of society. If that is not you and you just want to be homeless and you want to camp out in the woods, that's fine, but you can't do it here. And I think as a community, we have to take that stance. And the stance should be, we will help you, or you can go somewhere else. We have also started the Real Change program, where we take these folks who ended up in Pensacola, maybe by accident, maybe they came down here with a family member, they broke up, they got a divorce, whatever, and now they're homeless. So that program will seek to reconnect them with a support group back home, and it verifies that they have that support back home, and then it gets them back home. That program, since its inception, has saved you over $2 million of your taxpayer dollars.
All right. No commissioner is going to solve homelessness, and anyone who pretends is kidding themselves. But we all play a part. We all must come up with something. We all must find something that works. And for January 1st, I think that we have to hold ourselves accountable first versus holding the homeless accountable at first. We need easy entry places. That's what I'm calling it. A bed for a day, a bed for 2 days, whatever is necessary. I love the most recent program that the mayor is going to put in place. Is these easily set up shelters where somebody just has a bed and it's their bed for a day. They can get a good night's sleep, take refuge, and they're not on the street. They're not out panhandling or anything else. But we need to make sure that our house is in order, that if we are going to follow the law, which we know that we will, we have to make sure we have a place for different people to go. Sometimes that necessitates emergency houses, and that's more closely related to mental health issues and substance abuse. We have a lot of need in our community for substance abuse treatment. It's really out of control, just like our fentanyl usage, and it's it's killing people, and Escambia County holds the highest record of overdoses in the state of Florida. But regarding the homeless, we have to do our part, whether it's find a way to waive the fees at the mission for a bed for a night, but people have to also agree to comply with the rules that are set in place.
All right. Ron, the next question is explain your plan to help solve affordable housing.
Okay, my plan to solve more affordable housing is to build more housing. Right now on Jojo Road and Finley, that area is, the code allows for any type of housing to be built, mixed use, pretty much. We can build all kind of houses in there as the code is currently set. We need to build more houses, not on Jojo Road or on Finley Drive, but houses that are available. Some people need help with their first home. And right now the county has houses that are available, sitting empty. They're finished, but they've spent all the down payment assistance money in the past, and there's no help for anyone who needs help coming up with the first down payment. I think we have to, again, ensure that we're coordinating city to county, county to city on the resources that are available and not use them up so rapidly. We need to either write grants, find not developers, but individuals who's willing to do a private-public partnership. We see that in the tiny house program for the tiny houses that have been built. I think that has worked tremendously well, and I hope that we can build a lot more of those. We need to make better disclosure about, the county does have federal funding or state funding or no funding available before people even enter trying to get affordable housing. So we should be able to see that as an easy way of understanding where we stand for more affordable housing. It's okay to have it, and we do, but we've got to make sure we can qualify people to live in them.
I think this goes back to spending our tax dollars more wisely. Right now, there is a program that the county is running, and they will select people based on certain criteria, people in need, and they will go in and remodel their home and make it livable and hand the keys back to that person at no cost. That sounds great, except there's also times that we go in and we say, ooh, this house is unlivable, and we just tear it down and we rebuild them a new one, and then we hand them the keys and we say, congratulations on your new home, and then we walk away. We could take that money and we could give that to Habitat for Humanity, and they could use that money a lot more efficiently, and they could help 4 times the number of people that we are able to help as a county. They have the resources in place to do it. They get additional funds from outside. They are more efficient at building because we're county commissioners. We are not developers. We don't know what we're doing when it comes to that. So we need to select a partner that does know how to do that. So the question is, how do we make our taxpayer dollars go further so we can provide that housing? And that is spending it in a responsible way and partnering with someone like Habitat for Humanity and not handling that internally. The 12 houses or the 15 houses that he referred to that are sitting empty, it costs the county $200,000 per house to build, plus the cost of the land. It would have cost Habitat for Humanity significantly less than that. So we did not spend that money responsibly. So if we're going to provide more housing, we have to do it in a way where we're making our taxpayer dollars go further.
All right, Ashley, do you support notification of all neighbors in adjacent neighborhoods when plans for large developments are initially submitted to the county? Things like notify by mail and post large signage on site. This actually would alert neighbors before the deadline to respond before this passed and it's too late for any concerns. Do you commit to make notification a requirement?
I am absolutely committed to more transparency in our government. I love the fact that we have people in our community who are willing to step up and get involved and advocate for what's best for their neighborhoods. One of the things that I would like to do is make the meetings where we review those plans more public, so you know what's being reviewed. You can weigh in at that time. That'll do a couple things. One, you get notified sooner. You have the opportunity to contact the developer and ask for a town hall meeting, and you can raise your concerns earlier in the process. I would like to see those also live streamed. I know sometimes you can't make it to wherever those are being held, but we can live stream that, and then you would be able to voice your concerns from there. I am also a huge advocate of making people more aware of what the property around them is zoned. So I think a great way to do that is to work with our tax collector's office and make sure that people know where they live. You know what that's zoned for. And I think that they could help us do that as well. There's definitely room for a partnership there. I believe in anytime there is a change in zoning, making sure that everyone in the neighborhood is aware of that. Signage is vitally important, and proper notification far enough out so you can schedule to be there is also extremely important. You shouldn't have to take off work. It shouldn't be at a random hour. It should be at a time that is most convenient for the people in that community.
So yes, and hopefully the full board of the county commissioners will approve it. We need to be more proactive versus reactive in what we do. It's currently an embarrassment, it should be, for the county. How many of you have ever read some of those teeny tiny signs that's in front of a development? Okay, so very good. How many of you have never read one of those little signs?
How many of you cannot read them?
Okay.
I can't read them.
All right. And even when you read it, you don't necessarily know what it means. But in all seriousness, I cannot imagine it not happening. I was shocked to learn, and we'll use the case of Jojo and Finley, that the residents were not fully notified, made aware, or given an opportunity to engage about changing the zoning in that community. We see it all over the county now, and that sucks for residents. That takes away all the hard work, planning of a beautiful community that you have spent years of your life developing. The beauty of your home, the beautification of your neighbors' homes, a community. Sure, we can be open to having more communities join us, but it needs to be a community that brings with it a structure that is compatible, one that's upfront. We need to respect people who have lived in communities for over 50 years without jumping in on top of them at the lot next door and building whatever we want to. That needs to change.
All right, we have a 1 minute closing, but before we go to that, I wanted to open it up to the floor. We will do the same thing we've done. We'll ask the questions. We'll start with Ron on the first question and alternate as we go forward, whatever questions that you may have. And how long do we have again? I just wanted to remember what time were we?
End by 7:30.
Okay. All right. So we've got a little bit of time for some questions. So I think we'll start off. Chris has a question immediately. So.
Well, I'm going to ask about flooding. I believe I actually sent both of y'all this email.
It's Brother Flood Defender, yes.
Yes. And I sent these questions to another debate for District 5. I'm going to kind of condense it, though. We've seen flood damages from historical rain events, like the April 2014, 22 to 26 inches of rain in 24 hours. June 16th of 2023, 12 to 16 inches of rain overnight. Hurricane Sally, 24.88 inches of rain at the Naval Air Station. We've seen Hurricane Debbie this year, Helene, and now Milton. What should Escambia County do locally to adapt to these record-breaking flooding events? It's not if, it is when. Escambia Counties are using 1979 rainfall data when it's been updated by DOT in 2024. And what we're doing right now is we're doing reactive approaches. We're fixing the damages. what are some proactive approaches that we should take to prepare for these type of flood events? Should Escambia County change our policy requirements to utilize modernized rainfall data? I could go on, but I don't want to.
Chris, we need the question, not a
question.
response. Yeah, we need the question. All right. Ron, do you think you understand the question?
There's a lot of questions there. Yes, thank you.
We need
I
to
like
get
to talk.
Is it going? It's not big. I'm sorry. We'll start you back over. Hold on one second. Let's. All right. Go ahead.
Thank you. We need to get updated at the county level or any area that we're not up to date on with the current data, current guidelines, and see how other places are adapting. I hear the voice of Dr. Gloria Horning going off in my head at this moment. She lives in a flood zone. I'm very surprised the county hasn't bought her out. And that's probably ultimately one problem that we have that we're going to have to do. We have some residents that there's no return. I think she's had her house partially rebuilt half a dozen times at least. But it's a huge problem, and we know that we live in a flood zone. Even the people who aren't required to have flood insurance still flood from time to time. So I think we have to do or consider doing some buyouts. We need to update our maps on where the flood zones are based on recent years of rain activity, storm activity. And we probably need to put somebody like you on the county payroll to help lead this effort. But if we're behind in what we should know and should be doing, we need to update, just like we would in any department or anywhere else. So thank you.
All right, as we're getting that ready, Ashley, do you remember the question? Or?
I do.
Okay. All right,
Okay.
good.
Absolutely, I think we should work off the most recent data. If we want to provide the best quality of life for our community, you work off the best and most recent data. So if that comes in front of the board, I will absolutely vote for yes. You'll see my hand raised. The other side of that is over the last 10 to 12 years, we have quadrupled the number of retention ponds we have in Escambia County. The problem is we have not increased the crews that we have to maintain those ponds. So we need to look at increasing that workforce. I think we can work with the prison crews to do some of that. We can help out that way. We need to look at more creative ways to control the flooding. Rain gardens are a good option. There is a place in Tallahassee, and they have built a flood park. So it is a water feature that is, because apparently when people are bored, you will watch fire and you will watch water. So why not build a feature in the middle of a park, right? So it's this pond, and then there's playgrounds and picnic tables and pavilions on the outskirts of it. But the way that it sits, when the weather's nice, you can go out there and you have a beautiful water feature. But then when the weather gets bad and all the rain comes in and the flooding starts, the park is built in such a way that is actually meant to flood. So that's a twofer. You're getting a park and you're getting a retention pond, and it's a huge amenity for the community. So I'm an advocate for exploring ideas such as that.
If I could rebut.
Yes. You have 1 minute.
I think we have great county staff, and some of them have been with us for a long time, but some of them are rather new. It's very concerning to me that you can drive by storm drain after storm drain and see that the blockage is just backing up. No county employees doing anything about it. It's concerning to me that it goes on and on and on. You have even my neighbors in East Hill, they pile stuff in the street that fills up the storm drain. It causes even more problems. I can't imagine. I'm out of time. Thank you. We need to be proactive. We need to work in the areas that we can change. There have been times, and I've stood in homes that have been flooded where, for example, the pumps were never turned on of a storm pond. So we had a lot of East Hill properties that were flooded and had to be rehabbed at the owner's expense. So we have work to do.
Past that, okay. All right, we have another question?
Yes. We have a couple of questions.
Yes, thank you very much. And I thank both of the candidates. I'm very impressed with both of you, and it will be a hard choice to make. Don't you all agree? Oh, okay. I'm Sherry Myers. I'm a former city council person for 12 years. I served on the city council. I've been very active in issues concerning D4 all the way from Pensacola Beach all the way out. And so one thing that concerns me tonight is I haven't heard anything addressed about issues that are very important to 60% of your constituents who are in the city limits, and also Pensacola Beach. So I want to just very quickly, if I may, thank you, Grover Robinson. Grover saved the major headwaters of Carpenter's Creek, and it's going to be developed into an incredible nature preservation and an opportunity for you all to recreate. But Carpenter's Creek and Bayou Tahar are very important to the citizens of Pensacola. So the county is in charge of restore funds. Those are BP oil funds, by the way, that we got from BP oil. One of the projects that was selected for BP oil project was Carpenter's Creek and Bayou Tahar, and Grover is the one that selected that project. Thank you, Grover. But you are going to have to be responsible to know what those projects are and to implement them. Another program that Grover had done was Project Universal Access on Pensacola Beach. That project has not been implemented today. The purpose of that project was to make sure that people with disabilities, that all people have access to Pensacola Beach and all of the amenities over there. You know who's responsible for making sure that gets done? The Board of County Commissioners. So what I would like to know tonight from you is how familiar are you with the various pots of BP oil money that we're getting, not just Restore, but we have spent millions in Escambia County from pots of BP oil money. There are many of them. So as a citizen of Pensacola, the city of Pensacola, having served on the board, the city council for 12 years, having worked closely with Grover, I want to know, I would like to be excited about this race. And as I sit here today, I would like to hear your thoughts on an issue that I think concerns people who live in the city and Pensacola Beach.
Councilwoman Myers, thank you for your question, and certainly I just want to say you certainly had the passion for for Carpenter's Creek and those things, so it made it easy for me to support that, and I just want to thank you for that passion. I think we'll start with Ashlee, and if you understand the question on things going forward, then we'll go forward. It was a long question.
It was, but I appreciate it. The water quality flowing from Carpenter's Creek and into Bayou Tahar is so very important, not just for the people who live along there, but that is what flows into our bays and then into our Gulf. And it is vitally important that we keep it clean because most of our industry comes from tourism. And if that water becomes contaminated to a level that people can't swim in it, we can't go to the beach anymore and we will lose our tourism industry. So we have got to protect that. The Board of County Commissioners voted today to approve a contract for part of that, so I'm excited to see some of that moving forward. And then I'm not familiar with all the pots. There's a bunch of pots. You mentioned that. But as they come up and as we're researching projects, I do make every effort to be as familiar as I can with what those dollars can be spent for, and also how can we use those dollars to be matched by other grants as well. And I mentioned earlier the Triumph funds. We can use that for workforce development, and I want to use that to develop the workforce for our EMS.
All right, Ron, you got that long question too?
Sure.
All right.
Councilwoman Emeritus Sherry Myers, I will always call you that. You and I have walked Carpenter's Creek together before. It's been a very long time. There's a lot about uptown Pensacola that we need to talk about at some point. But I appreciate you being at the tip of the spear, leading people like both my opponent and myself, of knowing the history, of knowing what should be the intention and what has not been done. I love Carpenter's Creek, and I was very excited to read today about the upcoming project. And I know for you, that's like as if it was your own personal child, and I appreciate your passion around it. Water quality is in trouble in our county at the moment. You know, we have postponed the opening of Bruce Beach because the water is so bad. We're afraid somebody will either drink it or get in it. It's troubling. And we think we know what the solution is, and I think the city is working very diligently to resolve that. And I think it will be resolved quickly. There have been issues with homelessness at Carpenter's Creek and just people dumping everything everywhere. I don't know about the various pots of money. You've referred to them in the past, but I would really enjoy an opportunity to sit down with you and have you help me draft a chart of where all the pots of money are and whether or not they've been spent, and if so, where they were spent. I've said all that to say, we need you to stay in the fight.
All right, thank you. All right, we have another question.
Hey again. I'm president of Women for Responsible Legislation, Carol Jenkins. You've done a great job on your forum, by the way. I like this format. But let me ask you this, and I don't know if this is part of your business that you can even attempt. When we lose electricity at the red lights, it is very confusing when you have one side blinking yellow, the other side blinking red. I am sure that is a cause of many accidents when they should all be blinking red, because the yellows don't know that the others, or the reds don't know what the others are doing. And that's another issue that I don't know if that addresses you. The other thing is, I've noticed the traffic is really picked up lately, and we have a lot of newcomers, and the street signs are very hard to read sometimes. And I've even seen stop signs that are almost covered over. And I think that is an issue that the city, the county, and the state need to work on together. It gets very, very confusing if you are someone unfamiliar. Tippin, Langley, there's three of them.
Ninth Avenue.
Ninth Avenue.
The Bermuda Triangle, yes.
Is horrible. And then sometimes you know, I know I'm going to go left because that's what it always does. Not always. And so it's very confusing. Thank you for considering those.
All right. Ron, we'll start with you. It sounds like blinking lights, then traffic, and then dealing with things at the triangle of 9th, Tippin, and
Oh, and one thing.
Yes.
We need more cameras. I cannot believe the number of people that are, obviously red lights that they go through.
I'll let you deal with that first, Ron.
All right, thank you. Red light cameras are starting to be used in our county. I know in several states, courts have ruled that they're unconstitutional and that they're not appropriate. Right now, our stance is that we're going to have red light cameras, and I hope the ones we already have are catching people and are resulting in getting that little letter in the mail with the big invoice on it telling you that you've got to pay because in the middle of an intersection or you ran a red light when it was red. So I would agree that we need more cameras. I don't know how we're going to solve the problem of the Bermuda Triangle. I know it's not a roundabout that's going to solve that, but it's tough, and short of being extremely careful at those lights, I'm not sure what more that we can do except have a law enforcement officer there to direct traffic, which is very difficult to do with the demand on law enforcement that we have. I appreciated your 2 previous forums, and I found them very much an educational opportunity as well. So I think I've addressed the camera issue. I agree with you. We need more, not just at traffic lights, but in neighborhoods. I think I have surrendered on the Bermuda Triangle. And I don't remember if there was another part to the question.
The yellow blinking.
Yellow blinking. Well, when I was in high school,
We need to wrap it up. We're out of time.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought she wanted me to answer that. When I was in high school, we learned that stop means stop. And
We're past the time.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
All right, and we'll have 2 minutes for Ashlee.
Thank you. I bring hope. The county has invested is either a $9 or $14 million traffic control system. You probably, I didn't vote on this. This was done before me. It is in the works. That is also a long-term plan that will take time to implement, but there's hope. And as far as the Bermuda Triangle, I get it, because when Grant works late, Layla and I eat at Waffle House, and coming down 9th and trying to turn left into Waffle House, there needs to be a turning lane. That happens to us at least twice a week. So I would like to see something happen there, but I don't know what the fix is, but I would agree with you. The other thing that I would like to explore, and I've done some research on them, one of the problems that I see is people speeding through school zones and not heeding the speed limits in the school zones. There is a company out there that will install cameras on those school zone signs at no cost to the county. And I would like to look at implementing those. And you're wondering, well, nothing's free. You're right. They take a portion of the tickets they write. But I don't care how many tickets you write. If you're speeding in a school zone, you should get, a piece of that pie. And of course, the county gets the rest of that. So exploring things like that to help with speeding as well.
All right, we have, this will be our last question.
I promised him one.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Lisa Hudson. I live off of Finley. It's kind of 2-part question. Number one, the impact fees that we discussed earlier. And I'm in mortgage, so I kind of understand a little bit of that. But if the builder is not the one paying for those impact fees, which I know is going to be passed on to the consumer, it always is. But if the individual has to pay for those, that's a big added cost to the individual themselves. And from what I understand, those fees are pretty pricey. So I don't understand how one would be better than the other. So that's question one, kind of. And then the other thing you mentioned, Ashlee, some kind of program for when we were talking about the homeless. It was a new program that I've never heard of. I can't remember what you said.
The Real Change Program.
Yes, the Real Change Program. So could you speak a little more on that?
Sure. So what was the question on the impact fees? I didn't really understand the question. I'm sorry.
If the builder doesn't pay for it and the person having the home built has to pay for that, how is one versus the other any better?
So the theory is the contractor or the developer is the one paying the impact fees because it's being charged to them as part of the fee for putting in that development. The backstory behind that is the contractors are going to make whatever margin, 20% or so, on when they sell something. So they're just going to up the cost of that house. So eventually it gets passed on to the consumer no matter what. So that's where I stand on that. The Real Change Program, so year to date, 72 homeless people have been reunited with their support system back home. It's actually a program ran from somewhere near here. Olive is part of that program. There's a next door, right? Ministry Village, thank you, yes. So the officer will pick someone up, and if they say it's a female, and she said, I came down here with my boyfriend, and then he broke up with me, and I don't have anywhere else to go, the officer will say, well, where's home? And she says, it's Atlanta, Georgia. He will bring her here. They will do an evaluation. They will reach out to her family in Georgia. Her parents, I'm sure, are missing her, and they want her back home. And so the Real Change program will pay for either a bus ticket or a plane ticket to get her back home to her family.
So I think we got an answer for the impact fees, pretty much being the responsibility on the developer, which I know is passed along. But I think that if you're building a large development project, you can absorb some of those costs and cut in other places without passing it on. I'm excited to hear about the Real Change program, and I did not know about it until now. So it's good to hear about it. It's good to know that we have it. And like all programs, we just have to make sure that we're using it properly and making sure that we're not forcing people to leave against their will, but truly reuniting them with their family and loved ones.
All right, last question.
Yeah, my name is Marshall Herr. I live off of East Burge Road. I know you're talking about the homeless and the flooding. Homeless, we have people that live in our complex. We call the sheriff's department over there all the time. They won't do nothing. They go inspect, they ask them to move, they don't move. We have people that live in our complex. I'm not going to say the complex where I live, because I don't want nobody to come and try to do something. But we have a gentleman that lets homeless people come in there, and we gripe about it. Sheriff's Department says, we can't do nothing about it. Well, we have the same person that does racing down the highways off of Burgess and Creighton Road and all that, and nothing gets done to the Sheriff's Department because the son does not own the property. Mother does. I think there's things that need to be changed about that, because one of these days his son is in a Mustang, racing Mustang, is going to kill somebody. He drinks and drives. I've gone to the Sheriff's Department. They don't want to do nothing. I think they need to change the homeless part, the drinking and driving, and other stuff.
Ron?
Okay, do you believe in trying to fix that kind of issues? And how?
All right, Ron?
Thank you for that. And, dealing with the homeless is very difficult. And we already know in this county, and of course, many, many counties, it's not an easy task. Some people just want to be homeless, but also sometimes some people that are homeless just want a place to lay their head. And I'm not saying that's the case with your instance, but the trespassing issue comes up, but I'm not sure what authority the Sheriff's Department would be able to enforce under the law with the complicated situation with who really owns it. It doesn't mean that we don't try to resolve it, though. First, we need to try to get every homeless person into a place where they can get services that they need. Absent that, I'm not sure what we would do there in that situation, other than to try to communicate the issue is ongoing to the sheriff and see if he has a task force or someone within the department or a referral to social services to try to help work through that. Certainly a case manager would be helpful.
All right, Ashley?
Great question, thank you. I am working with the county attorney on a ordinance that will give Chip what he needs to make sure that everything in the House bill actually happens. The reason we need an ordinance is the House bill came down and said, hey, this is what it's allowed and what's not allowed, but there was no way to execute on that, and then there were no repercussions for not following it. So he did leave that up to the municipalities to carry out in whatever way we deemed necessary. And so I'm working with the county attorney's office on that. One of the things that we're very focused on is making sure that what the city is doing, the county is matching that, so we don't get, oh, well, we can't be in the city, but we can be in the county, and everybody just moves this way. So that is top priority for us. Part of that ordinance will be no camping on private property, so no temporary shelters for over 3 days on private property, and we would be able to execute on that whether it was approved by the owner or not, because it would be an ordinance violation at that point. I know that Andy Hobbs at the Sheriff's Office is working diligently to hunt down the owners of these homes. Like you mentioned, there's a house in North Point, and they're having the same problem. The mom's in a retirement community somewhere in South Florida. The son's here, and it's pretty much a crack house. So they are working to find her, locate her, and get her buy-in so that they can do what they need to clean up that house. So Andy has a great group of people that work with him in neighborhood services. It does take time to hunt those people down and show them why it's a problem for the community here, but he is working diligently to make that happen.
And before we end, I would just simply say to your question about what happens on getting them back, I do know that one of the challenges we, in a community that has great weather and warm weather, people typically decide, hey, I've got problems where I am and grew up. I want to live and go somewhere else, and that's going to solve my problems. And then they realize they get here and they haven't solved their problems. And what people will tell you about homelessness, if you don't have family support, it is going to be virtually impossible. So the idea is to support them to get back, and that's been happening for a long time and trying to do. But it really is, the problem is they got to have support to make it work. Well, I know there's a lot of people reaching through that. I know we did a lot of that during COVID, sent a lot of people back. But the problem that we run into is people simply come to places like Pensacola, Gulf Coast, and say, hey, this is going to solve my problems. And it didn't solve the problem that put them homeless in the first place. But we do have our own homeless here, and those are the ones we need to focus on. But I will say we're down to the last question. I believe... Ron, did you take, or actually you were last on that one, so I will give you the first chance, and we won't do a rebuttal. We'll do a 1 minute to close on why we should vote for you.
Okay.
Now, I will go with Ashlee first, and she answered the last one.
I answered. I think I answered first.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for taking the time to come out and hear us, and for some of you a second time, and I think one or two of you a third time. So it's really important. Your engagement really matters in this community. District 4 is unlike any other district in our county. 60% of the city is in this district, plus Pensacola Beach. Not to mention the airport. I have heard you. That's what I want you to leave here tonight knowing, that I have heard you. I've listened to you over the period of the last year or so, and that I would make a perfect choice as a commissioner who cares about you, available for you, who brings a fresh perspective, as I said in the beginning, to county government, new leadership that is full-time, serving the entire community, available and accessible, leadership that supports the priorities.
We're past the 1 minute.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was 1 minute?
Yes, in 1 minute.
I'm so sorry.
1 minute. It's all right.
So I ask for your vote on November 5th, or before.
All right. Ashley, you also have 1 minute.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy lives to invest in your neighborhoods and invest in your communities and educate yourselves about the candidates. You'll be voting on a lot of things. I'm urging you to vote no on 4. That is the abortion bill, so please vote no on 4. And then I would love to have your vote for county commissioner. I am dedicated to providing more resources for our first responders, making it easier to do business in Escambia County, and making it a more transparent process with better communication. My cell phone number is 850-696-7828. I am available for you. I would love to meet with you one-on-one if that is something that you need. If you want to have me out to your HOA meetings or your neighborhood watch meetings, I would love to meet with your community as a whole and bring all of the people that have a vested interest in your neighborhoods together. I am all about communication. Communication makes for a good community, and I want to foster that. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Yes, ma'am. 850-696-7828.
And if I may, I'll give you my number as well. It's on the back of my palm card, 850-266-4610. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much to the Finley Jojo Neighborhood Association for doing this. As I said, having good neighborhoods is going to help who is the Commissioner for District 4, absolutely. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you, Olive Baptist, for hosting. And listen, I want to thank these two people for being here and having the willingness to be out in front. Thank you.